Hello, and welcome back to Crit and Crit. I'm Sint,
I am Axion.
and we are continuing our discussion of Shakespeare's The Tragedy of King Lear while we play through Final Fantasy IX. So, this is a subject that's probably not super surprising that we're bringing up with regard to King Lear, because it's kind of half of the story, and it's to do with, age. There is a lot that goes around with discussion of age because, well, it does very much change the way you perceive the world. And ageism is something that comes up quite a lot, often in both directions. Those over a certain threshold look down on those who have not yet passed that threshold, whereas vice versa, those who have not passed a certain threshold see those who have passed it as being somewhat out of touch and possibly less able. And in some cases, this is unfair. In other cases, however, there is definitely something to be considered with regard to that, and I think this story shows very, very painfully the reality of dementia and senility. Because we watch King Lear go from a somewhat out of touch and a little bit full of himself old man, okay, a lot of it full of himself, to a complete broken shell of what once was, with no ability to anymore care for himself. So, yeah, this is going to be the fun one, huh?
Yeah, this is gonna go places.
Alright. So, senility is not really a term we use as much anymore because we have clearer, more diagnostic terms such as dementia and, in some cases, specifically Alzheimer's. And just so I actually had half an idea of what I was talking about with this and not going completely off of cuff, I did look up the Alzheimer's Association for some information here, and we're going to look and see if any of these come up with Lear. Because, let's see, challenges in planning or solving problems is seen as an early warning sign, and I think that's going to be, right off the bat, something we see with Lear. Because the example they give is making occasional errors when managing finances or household bills. The first thing he does is mismanage his entire household, and does this in such an irrevocable way that it completely and utterly upends his family dynamic forever, and is the root cause that leads to the death of both him and Cordelia, and really both Goneril and Regan. But yeah, I feel kind of bad leaving them as an afterthought here, but they kind of did orchestrate it.
Mm-hmm.
Difficulty completing familiar tasks. Given how reliant he becomes on the Fool and then later Tom, I would say possible. Confusion with time or place. Decreased or poor judgment. Yep. Withdrawal from work or social activities, feeling uninterested in family or social obligations, which could possibly have been the root cause of why he's dividing everything up and trying to step down, but not actually step down, but totally stepping down. Changes in mood and personality. It's not 100% clear if he's had a major shift in personality that has made him more reckless than before. I would presume so, on the basis of bad kings tend to get the choppy chop usually. So he theoretically would have been a successful king long enough to raise 3 daughters to adulthood, at the bare minimum. So I would guess that he was not always this out of touch, lacking good judgment, and I do what I want, I'm the king when.
Either that, or he was competent enough otherwise at being a king, that people feel less comfortable challenging him, and treasure. And especially when he would have been younger and more personally capable, people may have been more reluctant to challenge him because of how he might have retaliated when he was more capable.
Yep. So another site, Very Well Health, mentions warning signs from the CDC: forgetfulness, depression, withdrawal, aggression, increased injuries, hearing loss, getting lost, paranoia, and inappropriate behaviors. So I do think there's some degree of paranoia. He becomes instantly convinced that everybody is out to get him for everything. And I believe we talked it up to mere entitlement before, because there was a lot of, hey, can you tell your knights to stop treating the rest of the household like crap? They're very expensive to maintain, and at this point they're giving us both a financial and just a general headache. How dare you tell me what to do? This is a conspiracy against me! I don't know what accent that was, and I'm very sorry. And you could see some degree of aggression with that as well. So what could be seen as just entitled old man yells at cloud could also be, in some cases, seen as, yeah, you can see a lot of mental illness documented in older works in, times before they actually understood those as diagnoses.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you hear this a lot, actually.
Just people responding to what they saw and what they experienced rather than understanding the underlying functions.
Yeah, like, for example, you hear so many people complain for some reason that, why are there so many more autistic people these days? I'm like, for one thing, there aren't. It's just, we can recognize it, which is good, because that means we understand, and we know that that doesn't mean that much. Like, it doesn't prevent someone necessarily from having a perfectly fulfilling life. But back in the day, you probably had plenty of people on the spectrum who were having would have sensory issues if they were in a modern environment. But if you struggle with, sensory overload in a city that's full of constant cars and neon lights and crowded people, if you're living in a pastoral village and you're known as a little bit spacey, but you're really good at keeping track of how many sheep you've got to keep care of, that's probably a good job for you. So there's probably always been people with this particular mental condition, but it's only become really seen as a disability now, when the context of society has made it so. That said, since society is also so very, very, very built around being able to remember and keep up with things and be able to behave appropriately, when you reach an age, as Lear has, where you are no longer seen as being able to contribute, or you might be, just straight up unable to do it any longer, you kind of fall out of favor. So, yeah, that's kind of one reason that the retirement age is a thing, is especially if you're in a field that requires, like, physical labor. We probably want to make sure that you aren't at risk for forgetting the safety procedures for operating heavy equipment or working with chemicals. But we can talk about how retirement is actually going to look in the United States some other time, hopefully never, because I really don't want to dive into that one. Never mind. But, yeah. It's really, really easy to take a look at Lear and just examine how aging was seen back then. Because I believe second childhood is a term for it as well, and I don't remember how old that phrase is. I'm actually going to look that up.
Okay. While we deal with the creepy mysteries here going on in this, whatever the heck it is.
Yes, I know that's the definition of it. I'm trying to find the origin for it.
Oh, I think we made a mistake.
It's fine.
Creepy things!
Shakespeare, apparently.
Really?
I mean, I had a feeling because I have seen it come up in the All the World's a Stage speech, but I wasn't sure if he's credited from someone else. But the earliest known use of the noun second childishness is in the early 1600s. It's from before 1600 in the writing of William Shakespeare, playwright and poet.
Oh, well, that happened. Thanks, Garnet. Okay, so it makes sense that we're discussing that in this context. Which,
As you like it.
as you like it, okay.
It's the All the World's a Stage speech, where he's basically comparing life to a play. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. At first the infant, mewling and puking in the nurse's arms, and then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail unwillingly to school, and then the lover, sighing like a furnace, with a woeful ballad made to his mistress's eyebrow. Then a soldier full of strange oaths, and bearded like the pard, jealous in honour, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation even in the cannon's mouth. And then the justice in fair round belly, with good cape unlined, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise saws and modern instances, and so he plays his part. The 6th age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloon, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side, his youthful hose, well saved, a world too wide for his shrunk shank, and his big manly voice turning again toward childish treble, pipes and whistles in his sound. Last scene of all that ends this strange eventful history is second childishness and mere oblivion. Sans teeth, sans eyes, sans taste. Sans everything. So yeah, the idea of second childhood, you become old and again are now regressed to a child and need to be taken care of again. Mm-hmm. Which is exactly what happens to Lear and exactly what Cordelia tells her sisters when they tell her, you don't get to lecture us, girl, get out. She begs them to take care of him and be kind to him. Mm-hmm. And, yep, looks like he needed to be taken care of. Because they basically left him to his own devices, and they should not have done that, for a number of reasons.
And it's unfortunately something we both have real experience with our own older family members.
Yeah. So, we don't really get to see much indication from Goneril and Regan that seeing Lear in this reduced and less capable state causes them any degree of pain, because they already got paid. They don't have to worry about staying in the will. But we do know that Cordelia cares, and has basically, Cordelia is our contact point for being in the position of watching a loved one wither and knowing there is nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, Goneril and Regan's primary response seems to be annoyance or frustration with having to deal with Lear in his state. Which, unfortunately, is a realistic response in a lot of ways that a lot of people have to people, be they elderly or just having some kind of mental effect. There's a lot of people that just respond to that with, "You're frustrating me, you're annoying me, why do I have to deal with you?"
Yeah. But Cordelia is worried enough about him to come back to a country that is hostile to her because, let's have a war, to find her father, set out a search party for him from the war camp when she finds out he's missing, and then is the first sight he sees when he wakes up. Oh, my dear father, restoration, hang thy medicine on my lips, and let this kiss repair those violent harms that my two sisters have in thy reverence made. Had you not been their father, these white flakes did challenge pity of them. Was this a face to be opposed against the jarring winds, to stand against the deep dread bolted thunder and the most terrible and nimble stroke of quick cross lightning, to watch poor Perdu with this thin helm? Mine enemy's dog, though he had bit me, should have stood that night against my fire. Yeah, you were their father, and they treated you like this. In a storm like that. But there is something to be said with, well, Cordelia also serves as an anchor point because when he's with her, Lear comes back to himself a little bit. Yeah. Be your tears wet? Yes, faith, I pray, weep not. If you have poison for me, I will drink it. I know you do not love me, for your sisters have, as I do remember, done me wrong. You have some cause they have not. So he's able to recall, and when he's with her, I know that I treated you very badly, and therefore you have more reason than your sisters to turn on me. But Cordelia sticks with him. And I kind of want to refer back to our discussion of the metamorphosis, with the burden of being the caretaker for someone who can't help being in that position. It's not quite the same. With the metamorphosis, it just fell on Gregor all of a sudden out of the blue, and his family was not able to cope. With King Lear, everything happens suddenly, but not suddenly, if that makes any sense. Like, he makes the decision to divide his kingdom up now, and that does precipitate everything else, but evidently it's something he has been thinking on for a while. He just does it a little bit rashly, and then it's not just suddenly you're a cockroach laying in a bed and freaking everybody out. It's, we go for a few days, possibly weeks or months, it's not really clear, and then you start getting on their nerves with being inconsiderate of house rules, house expenses, everything, so on and so forth, and then you lash out, and then it just becomes alienating everybody, and they turn you out into nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, we don't really get to see quite the same dynamic that we saw with Gregor and his sister. Whereas, like, I think what we are going for with our real experience with this is watching a grandparent be diagnosed with dementia and trying to keep in touch with them and knowing that you're going to have to say the same things over and over again, and they're not going to remember it the next time you speak to them. You don't know if they've remembered the conversation because you've told them the same thing 3 times in the same conversation, and you know they're trying. They're not trying to make you repeat the same stuff over and over again. You know they're not trying to forget things, but there does come a certain feeling of futility after a while.
Yeah.
And it's not fair because it's not as though either party is trying to put the other party in an uncomfortable position. It's an unfortunate reality that has to be dealt with, and it just bears with it that emotional burden. So, yeah. And ultimately, in the end, it's not just the senility and dementia that take Lear, it's despair when Cordelia is taken from him. The primary person who would have been his caretaker, because while we know Kent has been there the whole time, he's only-ish aware, because, fixations. Lear fears as though he has no one left to live for, and it kills him. And, yeah. elder care, elder abuse are very, very prominent topics to talk about with regard to this as well. I would say Goneril and Regan definitely have a few things to say about elder abuse. But I don't know. What say you, Axion?
Okay. So, I guess I'll share my own story here. My family member, I won't get any more specific than that, for privacy purposes, or was diagnosed with brain cancer. And they deteriorated very quickly, almost immediately after the diagnosis first happened. And it was, like, very noticeable. They went from someone who was fairly independent, given their age, to someone who had to be essentially cared for their entire life, every second of every day. Because they couldn't manage on their own. And of course, cancer being cancer, just eventually that just ran out. Oh, ow, this is gonna hurt.
They say it's the Black Waltz, but I'm going to call it the Dance Macabre.
The what?
Dance Macabre.
Oh, Dance Macabre. Okay, I didn't understand what you said. It kind of got blurred. Do I not have any face names? There's some. So, to get back to the actual subject of King Lear, especially during the whole scene with Tama Bedlam and just him being in the swamp and or whatever it was, and just having to deal with all of that, was all very familiar to me from having that experience prior in my life. And, like, I could see kind of a few similarities with how Lear's descent into dementia is portrayed. with how I've seen those symptoms play out in real life. And I'm not wordsing very good right now. Yeah, I'm not sure I have much more to add.
Yep. So, that's fair. We can just call it here.
All right, then we'll call that one a close, and I'm sure there's plenty of people who have similar experiences that they've had to deal with and can probably see similar patterns with everything. So, I'm sure you all know where I'm coming from. We'll see y'all next time.